And now the director of SunSeed The Journey and today's host, Amartat Kohn.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our SunSeed Wisdom Talks. This is number 17 in our series of discussions with great thought leaders and spiritual teachers of today and tomorrow. If you want to see this program afterwards or share it with friends, you can find it on our website at sunseed.org/wisdom talks. And you can also see our other fantastic interviews with other people that we've had over the last year and a half. And then you can also take a look at the movie SunSeed The Journey if you haven't seen it yet. This is a documentary film made back in 1970 with Ram Dass and Sufi Sam, Pir Vilayat Khan, Swami Muktananda, many of the people who came to the West to start off a new chapter in our evolution of spiritual consciousness. Today's guest, Mirabai Bush, is truly a being who embodies love, compassion, and service to others. She spent her whole life dedicated to inner work and outer service. She met Ram Dass over 50 years ago in India, and they spent, after their original meeting at a retreat, they went and met with Nim Karoli Baba. They stayed with him for over 2 years. Mirabai has an amazing list of things that she has done to help humanity. She co-founded the Center for Contemplative Mind and Society. She's a founding board member of the Seva Foundation. She wrote 2 books with Ram Dass, including Walking Each Other Home, that we'll discuss in detail today. She also co-developed the curriculum called The Search Inside Yourself that Google uses for their employees, and it's gone beyond Google now and helped many people in mindfulness-based emotional intelligence. And she now is hosting podcasts on the Be Here Now network that you also don't want to miss. Her work and influence goes on and on. I'm so happy to have you with us, Mirabai. Welcome to the SunSeed Wisdom Talks.
Thanks. Happy to be here. Thanks for that nice introduction.
It's a blessing for us, really. My first question is really to talk a little bit about your history, right? Like how you got into the spiritual life, working with meditation and all the teachers that you've been with over the years. Maybe you can just pick out a couple key moments that were really important to push you ahead.
My first meditation teacher was Goenka when he was in Bodh Gaya and teaching the first meditation course for Westerners. And there I met Ram Dass and many other people who've been my lifetime friends. And then from there, we went to meet Maharaji Neem Karoli Baba, who Ram Dass had he had been in India before. He had gone back to the States and written Be Here Now, and then returned to India. And Be Here Now came out at a time when many people were going through what I've been going through. The thing about it was that there weren't any other books that were helpful for people. Ram Dass brilliantly brought together Western psychology. He'd been teaching psychology at Harvard. And Eastern mysticism. And he had also the experience of psychedelics, which had brought many people into spirituality at that time. And so it was kind of a real beginning time of discovering how to integrate these practices and these teachings into our lives so that we could take it back into the West and, live what we thought were the most ethical, moral, socially contributing lives that we could.
What does it mean? What has it meant to you now for 50 plus years to have been on let's call it a spiritual path? What has that meant for you in your life, and how has that changed your outlook and what you've done?
when I first came back from India with the others who had come back at that time, many of whom became teachers, Buddhist teachers and Hindu Sufi teachers, right? And but teaching in those years, in the early 70s, was going on in retreat centers. There weren't any, so we had to establish them. But and the whole idea of contemplation, meditation, um, even yoga, was in a monastic setting. Is because we had learned those practices in those settings in Asia, and we came back and we didn't really get that they could be taught and learned otherwise. My then husband and I started a business silk screening these mandalas, a Tibetan mandala, and there was a Native American ones, and the rose window from Chartres, and we did the Sufi wings and many. We silk screened them in transparent ink on clear plastic, and people put them on their windows, and on their car windows. But what we really wanted to do was create what we had a concept we had learned in Asia of right livelihood. We didn't want it to create it in the model of Western capitalism.
And you called this business Illuminations or something,
Yeah.
I think, right?
Yeah,
Which
we called it Illuminations, and that was its purpose. And it grew, and we had almost 100 people working at one stage of it. And it was quite extraordinary in terms of building community and continually looking at whether what we were doing was aligned with Dharma principles. And anyhow, that was the beginning for me because of bringing it into life and work. It also, I mean, I'd had enough teaching to know that the ultimate goal is to make your life your practice. I mean, we sit down on these cushions and practice, not because we want to live a life sitting on a cushion, but because it renews in us and develops in us certain skills that we then can bring into living our lives at moment to moment. So I wanted to see if we could actually make work be practice in itself. Could we learn from it? Could we grow from it? And I did that for over 10 years and learned a lot. And after that, some of the folks I had been in India with Maharaji, wanted to start an organization that would fulfill Maharaji's directive of love everyone and serve everyone, and do it within public health and do it in an experimental, non-conventional way, which is how smallpox was ended, the first infectious disease to ever be eliminated on the planet. And we can now appreciate that so much more after COVID. And so we chose blindness in Nepal as an area we could work in. And there are many stories to be told about that, as you can imagine, including in the beginning that they would go out there in jeeps and perform cataract operations by flashlight. It was wild. But now Seva has, I think you said, has restored sight for 6 million people. So, but when I became engaged in it in the beginning, I thought, what do I have to offer? You know, I've been running a business. This is a nonprofit, and it's medically, epidemiologically based, international public health. I don't know anything about that. But of course, the skills that I had developed in running a business and developing an organization, developing a community of people who work collaboratively together and effectively, turned out to be a really great skill.
So let me ask you this, because you spoke about the monastic life, and much of the spiritual roots that we have today come from monastic life. In fact, the whole concept of enlightenment gives me a lot of thought, because most all the examples we have are monks, people who've not been in the world, right? And so, how do you see enlightenment for those of us who are outside the monastery? And is that an aspiration for yourself on your own path, or what actually keeps inspiring you?
I don't have the aspiration to become enlightened, but I have the, like, as we used to think about it, becoming sitting in a surrounded by light. But I do have the aspiration to wake up to the truth of whatever arises in each moment as much as I can, and to become a being who creates as little suffering as possible and relieves as much suffering as possible. So, loving everyone and serving everyone. That's, I mean, if it should happen that whatever that state of enlightenment, however you define it, should happen, then it would happen. But that is not I don't see that as an intentional goal of mine. My intention is to live a life of love and service.
So let's go to your book, right? I adore this book. In fact, I could probably spend the whole hour just reading quotes from this book. But this is Walking Each Other Home. Obviously, I recommend everyone to read it. It's a book that Mirabai wrote with Ram Dass, and it's not only a guide on how to be there and help others with their impending death and passing, but you also go into great detail on how each of us can prepare our own dying.
Well, the first thing I want to say about the book is that Ram Dass, as you know, and anyone who's read Be Here Now and any of his work since then knows, Ram Dass has been talking about dying for 50 years. And but as he was approaching his own death, and he didn't know when that was going to happen, but he was in his late 80s, so he knew it was pretty soon. And he wanted to talk about death as he knew it now, having lived a life. And as you heard, we were old friends and had written a book before. But we decided the way we'd do it is we would make a commitment to each other to say what we know and don't say what we don't know. That's all. And we focus on dying, which of course led to loving and living, because, I mean, the dying itself is a few minutes, and the rest of what we have to do is now. And it was really beautiful. And what I tried to do in the book is like bring those conversations alive as if the reader could be there too. It was pretty wonderful. Yeah, Ron just said you won't be surprised to hear. He said, there's a quote in there at one point. He says, the best way to prepare for dying is the best way to live your life, which is be here now. Learn to be in the present moment.
Concentrate on the moment, just this moment. And you can do it in your life, and you will be ready for the death.
As he says, dying is just another moment. And in fact, I mean, the leading up to it, many people worry about, pain and dementia and other things. But the dying itself is those last few moments is just, he said, if you can be in the moment now, eating a hamburger, then you can be in the moment when you're dying. And then you will be ready for whatever follows.
Because death is another moment. It's another moment.
I want to read this from the book. We fear the loss of identity, of our individuality, of our self as knower. Give it up. and you come to know the soul, releasing your need to know in the conventional way, giving up your sense of separation.
What I found in working on this book with him, it took 2 years because I was in Massachusetts, he was in Hawaii, I was flying back and forth. I didn't have like super fears of dying before that. But of course, I had some, like we all do. And but I noticed that over the time of just bringing it into awareness, that by the time those 2 years were over, I saw that I had just so much less fear than I had before. I mean, part of it, of course, was like wonderful privilege of being with Ramdas, and because he was not afraid of dying, and that was so clear. But still, a lot of it was just paying attention, thinking about it, talking about it, like making it part of my life. Made those kind of fears that we're afraid to look at, they fell away. So there are many ways in which you can do this. Many traditions have a practice of, there's that great practice of Christian monks, memento mori, where, the head monk goes down the hallway every morning or night, I forget, and just knocks on everybody's door and says, memento mori, remember that you will die.
Ram-Dass, of course, had this overriding faith, and I can't say what experiences led him to that, of the soul being something that is immortal and will continue on. He talked about going into soul pods and being home again.
Mm.
But also behind that is the whole tradition of reincarnation, the belief in in a way that takes some of the onus, I guess is the word, away from dying. Or if you have a belief in an afterlife with in the sense of other religions,
even if you think that's what's going to happen, you don't really know. And so how you live your life now, getting ready for death, I mean, I find it, my sense is that we are more than these bodies, that there is an awareness, some people call soul, that doesn't die. What happens to it, I don't feel like I know. But I think that even so, everyone wants to die a peaceful death and to have led, a good life leading up to that. So, I mean, if you believe in reincarnation, which makes sense to me, but I don't know that I know it's going to happen, then you recognize that everything you do in this life will condition your next life. And of course, that's what people believe about heaven and hell also, that your actions here, but will condition your next life. But they condition this life. And so I think that's enough. That it's not necessary to believe in either reincarnation or an afterlife, although I really understand why that's emerged, whether I allow that any of it is true. But I do see that it is comforting. But it's good to think about, what if that isn't true? What if this is all there is? Then what? then how do I want to live my life? I think if you ask that question deeply enough, you still want to lead the best life you can.
You've assisted many people's bedside in their final days. I don't know, maybe their final hours. And you talk a lot in the book about what we can do to be I don't want to say a guide, to be a witness or a listener at least. How can we and the viewers here best serve our loved ones and friends during their last days?
That, I think that's a great question. And I think that's a great contribution that Ram Dass made. And in this book, we really try to talk about it very specifically. He calls it being a loving rock, which I really like. Because I think, and this is true, earlier in my life, I thought, isn't there something I can do? Is there something I should say? Is there something I can do to keep this from happening? Whatever. All these thoughts come in to your mind, and we're just assuming that medical people or caregivers or so on are doing the work that needs to be done. And if you're just there accompanying, that the greatest thing you can do is to just be there and just be as fully present with as little going through your mind as possible. So it's resting in a meditative state without making that too demanding. Just being there, not wanting to change anything, recognizing that this is what's happening now, and that the best way you can help this person is just to be a loving presence. And of course, what happens also, besides wanting to do things, is your own fears of dying often arise during that time. Your fears about your own death, your thoughts about who you're going to leave behind and what you ought to be doing before you die, and all of that. And so what makes this a meditative practice is, or I should say, what meditative practice experience can really help you be a loving rock, because it helps you know how to just let go of those thoughts as they arise. You can deal with them later, but to just, if that person dying who's in a very sensitive state, can you probably sense when you've got all kinds of stuff going on, that's not what's most helpful. So just learning to let go of your own fears during that time is very helpful. And I would also say that if you're close to someone who's in the process of dying, or just know they have a terminal illness and they know they're going to die within some time. I just went through this with a good friend, and she had a congenital lung disease. Other people in her family had died from it. She knew she was going to die within weeks or months. And there are ways in which, in simple ways, without trying to, be an expert on things, you can really be helpful. And this book has, suggestions about that. I, in the day or so before she died, I read her the meditation Ram Dass likes of when you, as you're dying, as you welcome into you and merge with a being who is as a being of light and spirit. For him, it was Maharaji, but for other people, it might be a saint, or it might be Jesus or Mary or their teacher, or and we talked about that. And as it turned out, when she died, she wanted the person who was guiding her to read her that meditation over and over. And it really helped her. And as I said, she was not a person who'd done anything like this before. So I'm just saying they're very practical. They're very practical suggestions in the book about, how to be a loving companion, and then how to die a loving death yourself.
In the back of the book here, there are meditations and recommendations and actual practices that you can do for your own self or with other people, as you said. And, really, thank you so much for the book. So how can we reach out to bring more people, and even people who are maybe asleep? I don't want to make a difference here, but to understand compassion and love, to help break down the barriers that divide us today and may destroy us if we're not careful.
In discussions around how things are difficult, just sharing like what's been most helpful for you, a time when you were able to, have a difficult conversation with someone and it really helped. I think just, speaking from your experience, and then sometimes opportunities open up where you feel like you can make a broader contribution to a group or larger group, or through media, or that you can encourage people to explore ways to open their hearts and be more forgiving, tolerant, loving, listening. I mean, we didn't even mention it, but mindful, deep listening is probably the most important skill right now. And we all know how hard it is to listen to people on the other side of whatever divide, to not just to hear the words, but to really listen for the intention, listen for what they're trying to say.
Finally, it's only love that's going to make a difference in the world. And we talk about love, but really feeling it and projecting it is a work to do.
Love isn't just, something that we like cultivate for a few people. Love is, as they say, what makes the world go round. No, it's critically important for our future.
You are such a great role model for all of us, but especially for women. You said, you go back to where you were a CEO way back then, but what can you say, especially today, for women, the important role they have, and now apparently, hopefully, a greater opportunity to help bring some of the differences that we're feeling in the world, these tremendous tensions and conflicts. What can you say as you see the role of the modern woman? I don't know what to call it, but today.
Yeah, it's always difficult to talk about this without getting caught in sounding like a cliche, but really important. It's going to take all of us to contribute to it, to move us toward a future that's habitable. I have a granddaughter, so I'm very aware of what she might be growing into. I think from my experience, it has been women who've been the best at letting go of ego-driven goals and listening and working cooperatively and collaboratively to see what the greater goal is for all of us. I think that it's not to say that these qualities and capacities can't be cultivated by men. Of course they can be, but the way in which we've all been educated and conditioned has made it more difficult for men, it seems to me. So I think, and there's a way in which women, and I think it goes back to the capacity, if not the experience of childbearing and mothering, that there is an energy that women carry of, or in a capacity maybe to be able to do what needs to be done. whatever that is, in whatever moment it is. I don't want to make absolutes, and not every woman is like this, of course, but in my experience of working with many women, I feel that that's something that they're more usually able to do. And with everything changing as fast as it can, we need that. We need that ability to keep changing and to respond by doing what needs to be done and letting go of the way we think things ought to be and listening for what's possible.
Maybe you have something else you'd like to share as a final thought from the depth of your being that's most important for all of us to hear.
While you're loving everybody else, love yourself. And after all the times when you don't live up to your own expectations and goals, just forgive yourself and begin again. It's never too late to begin again, to bring love into the world. Yeah, in every moment, whatever presents itself to you.
Nothing more to add, except now maybe we can take some quiet time together. For our audience, we're going to have a meditation with Mirabai.
For years, we called these practices contemplative practices, thinking that had like a wider reach than, say, meditation, and did. But I really think of them as human practices. They really are ways of coming to know ourselves better. And then out of that, seeing in what ways we want to make change going forward. So this practice is just a quieting of the mind and being present in the moment. And then resting in that place in us, in you, that is not the mind that that's not the ego. That's not the mind that that makes lists and does things and achieves things and thinks of you as whoever it is you think you are. There is something beyond that, and you might call it soul. I would, in this practice, we're going to call it awareness, loving awareness. It's that part of you that isn't thinking, that isn't feeling sensations, that isn't caught in memories. It's just the awareness that is noticing yourself thinking or feeling. And that the more you can get at home, familiar and at home in that awareness, I find that it gives you an amazing sense of strength and just rightness about being here in this body at this time. So I will invite you you can do this with eyes open or eyes closed. I always think it's easier. Zen practices are with eyes open, looking at a white wall. I always think it's easier to do with your eyes closed, just because it takes away a whole realm of sensation, and I'm very visual. So I would, but you can do either one, doesn't matter. If you don't close your eyes, just cast a soft gaze on something. Don't be looking at things. So sitting in a comfortable, relaxed, but upright posture so that your spine is straight, your head is sitting centered, top of your spine. Just begin by noticing any sensations in your body. Maybe you have some pain or irritation, or maybe it's hot or cold. Just noticing your body from within your body. Here you are, sitting, standing, wherever you are. This is it. This is you in this moment. And then gently bring your attention to your breath. You can notice it as it comes in and out of your nostrils and fills your lungs and your belly. Or you can notice the rising and falling of your belly when the breath reaches it. So just find a way in which you can notice each breath, breathing in and breathing out. And when thoughts and emotions arise, memories, just gently let them go. Come back to the breath. There'll be plenty of time for those later on. So breathing in and breathing out. When the mind wanders, gently bring it back to the breath. And now, letting go of any effort, any doing anything, and just allow yourself to rest in awareness. Just that part of you that's not doing, not sensing, just resting. You might imagine yourself floating like a cloud in the sky. And then softly saying to yourself, reminding yourself, I am loving awareness. This is who I am. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. Nowhere to go, nothing to do, just being loving awareness. And then when you're ready, coming back into the room, opening your eyes gently. Thank you.
Thank you, Mirabai Bush. And to our audience, be sure you listen to the podcasts and webinars that Mirabai is doing and going to be done at the Be Here Now Network, which is the network that was created through the Ram Dass organization and now is putting out a lot of great media with Ram Dass in it and other and friends, let's say. Of course, I hope that you'll all visit our SunSeed Wisdom Talks. We have some other great people that have joined us along with Mirabai. You can send your friends to take a look at this whole program again. And I was thinking, Mirabai, that in the movie SunSeed, we have we actually close the whole movie SunSeed, the journey, with Ram Dass giving us that same meditation.
I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And if you can identify as loving awareness in your heart, you will perceive your whole incarnation will be light and bright and peaceful. Yeah. Oh, and joyous.
Thank you again so much for that. To our audience, wishing you all a safe and happy day, that you have a blessed life. The good afternoon, I guess, wherever you are. Good morning, good night. May you all be blessed. Namaste. Shalom Aleichem. Assalamu alaikum. Jai Ram. Om. May the long time SunSeed shine upon you.